Hybrid training is training for multiple disciplines at the same time. Strength, speed, endurance, and functionality. Personally, I think this should just be called normal training. It shouldn't need to have a name because I believe we're all designed to be functional across multiple disciplines. But for whatever reason, we've given it a label, and that label is hybrid training. Before we do get into it, I want to make it very clear that I'm not an elite athlete. I don't claim to be. I work a 9 to 5. Fitness is just something that I do outside of work. Over the past few years, I've tried a few different variations of training, and this is what's working for me at the minute. The focus is on getting stronger, faster, building more durability, and also leaning more into aerobic work to maintain what I've already got. In this video, I'll show you specifically how I break down my current hybrid training split around working full time. A lot of people want to try and train like a full-time athlete while also having a full-time job, which means most of us don't have time to do 3 training sessions a day, have a mid-afternoon nap. I get up at 5 o'clock to try and get a walk and a weight session in before starting work because I work a sedentary job and I don't get much chance during working hours to get any steps in. So if I can get 45 to an hour walk in, plus gym session in, plus like the 3,000 that I get at work, that usually puts me on about, what are we on at a minute? 9,774 for a day. But yeah, I like to aim for 10k steps a day, and I can usually do that by getting an hour walking in the morning plus the gym session. The trade-off to getting up at 5 o'clock means I don't have much time in an evening to do much before I need to start winding it down. I try not to see 9 o'clock. I train 6 days a week. I'm currently doing 4 strength sessions a week, which consists of push-pull legs and a full body, 1 interval session, 1 longer aerobic session, and on one of those strength days, I have an easy run in the afternoon. Monday, leg day. I enjoy training legs on a Monday because 1, no one really likes training legs. So if I can get it out the way early, then I've got the rest of the week to focus on other areas. But what that also means is, essentially, any runs or stuff that you do throughout the week is almost compromised because it's forcing your legs to run after being fatigued. And also, if an opportunity were to arise where I might get called up to do Manchester Marathon on 2 days' notice, then my legs should be relatively fresh for that. So the way that I structure this session basically just consists of starting heavy, finishing light. The only reason for that is because as my legs get fatigued, I don't want to have to keep getting heavier. To break this down, I do squats first, because this is subjectively heavy. We all lift different weight, but for me, this is the heaviest weight that I move in this session. And then I move on to a lot of single leg stuff because single leg helps with running massively. So the single leg stuff that I do is single leg RDLs, lunges, leg curls, leg extensions, and calf raises. I've also just started leaning more into isometric movements, and all isometric means it's when you're stationary, when the muscle's under tension. I also include back extensions using a barbell. My gym doesn't have a machine for it. I sit down for 8.5 hours a day, plus I've added bike to my longer aerobic sessions on a weekend. That's quite taxing on your back, so I don't want to skip that. Tuesday, push. Tuesday morning, I like to train push. This consists of a press, a shoulder press, and some dips. Then I can move on to the lighter exercises such as lateral raises and chest flies, and then I finish with some triceps. I like to start with the compound movements because generally it gives you like the most return on investment. If you do a bench press, you're getting your chest, your delts, your triceps. Tuesday evening run club. This usually consists of a steady aerobic session. Sometimes we'll go to a running track. I try and switch it up every week just to keep things fresh, trying to keep everyone engaged. But most of the time it's at 6 to 7 kilometers at a pace that everyone feels comfortable at. The focus with this session isn't necessarily performance, it's more bringing people together. Wednesday morning, pull day. In the past, it has been pointed out that sometimes I will use momentum. I think momentum gets involved when you can't control the weight and you let your ego run riot. And now I try not to do that because I'd rather control the weight as opposed to just try and lug it up. So I do incline rows, single arm lat pull downs, pullovers, rear delt flies, and then I move on to some bicep exercises. And then one thing that I've noticed with cycling specifically, and also with my line of work, my forearms don't get much of a stimulus, which means that my grip strength isn't necessarily the strongest. So I've stopped using straps for pulling exercises because with straps, it takes away the need for grip strength. So it's more engaging in your back, whereas I've removed the straps and now I'm actually engaging my forearms as well. And then to finish on my pull day, I'll do hanging leg raises, again using the forearms, and it's also getting your abs. Thursday, intervals. This is my 1 dedicated speed session of the week. With this, it's training quality over quantity. I think it's very common for people to want to try and go for a 5k PB every week. While yes, you could, it's not sustainable. Steady aerobic work combined with a fast session. The way that I look at it is interval session is basically sharpening the tools. Aerobic work is building the base to execute from. With these interval sessions, I just try and improve them gradually in some way or another every week. So it could be by speed, it could be by the total distance. So for example, one week I could do 400 meters at 3-minute 30 kilometers, and then the week after I'll do 600 meters or 800 meters, and then and so on and so on. Friday, full body. This one is compound lift focused. I try to keep things relatively simple. Pull-ups, dips, overhead press. That's getting your full upper body. And then I move on to sled pull, sled push. With the exercises in this session, I won't go for 12 reps. I'll put it to a weight where I feel like I can only do 6 to 8, because my other 3 days are more catered to like the single arm, the single leg movements, whereas this one's like a heavier session. Weekends. So I keep it relatively broad in terms of which day I specifically do what, but at the minute it's looking like Sundays are my longer aerobic session, Saturdays are the active recovery session. The longer aerobic session could either be a long run or it could be out on bike. The main goal of this session is to just build and maintain aerobic capacity. Even on weekends, I do still try and wake up at that 5 o'clock in the morning, because I feel like it does have a knock-on effect. So if you do have a lie-in up until 9 o'clock on like the Sunday morning, come 8-9 o'clock, you've only been awake for 12 hours and you're not necessarily going to be tired. I'd like to carry that momentum. Being consistent with a sleep schedule, it's good for recovery, it's good for maintaining energy and building an overall consistent routine. Nutrition. For me, I try and keep nutrition as simple as I can. Food is fuel at the end of the day. Regardless of how glamorous you want to make it look, it's just a tick box activity. But you do also want to make that tick box activity remotely enjoyable. So I've tried to find food that I enjoy. At the minute, breakfast is oats, honey, dark chocolate and frozen fruit. I have that before I go to the gym, because that way I've got stuff in my system to use as fuel. And then when I get to work, I'll have 4 eggs, 2 slices of sourdough toast. And then dinner time usually looks like 200 to 300 grams of meat. And then I just go a bit ham with veg, because no one ever overate on lettuce. There's a lot of admin involved in trying to track your calories every day. And what works for me is find set meals that you enjoy, track it once, and then eat the same thing. Some people might think that's weird, but for me it's just convenience. At weekends I will have an off-plan meal, and I also push my clients to do the same, because Monday to Friday you've woke up, you've smashed your gym in the morning, you've done your work, you've stuck to it, and then on a weekend you get to have an off-plan meal where you're not really too worried about tracking it per se. But even then, if I know that there's like a big meal on the horizon, then I will intentionally ease off of eating on that day in the morning, maybe just have breakfast, and then you're kind of not necessarily overeating, because say even if you have a 400 calorie breakfast and then it's a 2,000 calorie meal, you're still all right for the day. So you're kind of cheating the system. Don't dive headfirst into it. Change one thing gradually, let that become your norm, and then change something else. So for example, rather than going straight into waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, doing a walk, going to the gym, going to work 6 days a week, get into the routine of going to the gym 3 days a week. I see it in myself and I've seen it in other people. Like if you dive head first into something, going 0 to 100, it's very common to get bored and lose interest just as quick. Whereas if you change something gradually, 1% better every day, small changes repeated consistently will always beat massive changes that only last a few weeks. Write that one down. I'm not claiming this is the perfect hybrid training split, but this is what works for me at the minute. If you are interested in getting started in hybrid training, then I will put a template of a 3, 4 and 5 day split on screen. Screenshot them, save them, do what you need to do, implement it and crack on. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments, what sort of hybrid training split do you do? I'm curious to know how other people make it fit. So yeah, let me know. Thanks for watching. I'll see you up some mountain or something next time.